In today's Leeds news, Farke new contract details, expected grey future talk, Byram would love a new deal, Leeds under 21 debuts, and Mark Roca's Bettis move hits a blocker. Morning folks, Jay here on Tuesday the 5th of March at The View with your Leeds United news. Hope you're having a good week so far. We've got a little bit to get into, so let's not hang around and let's just get stuck straight in. We're going to start off with some news around Daniel Farke and a potential new contract for the manager, even though he's still in the first year of his current deal. Speaking in his column in MOT Leeds News, sports finance expert Dr. Dan Plumley has insisted that Daniel Farke may be headhunted by other clubs, and this is due to an update that has come out on his current contract negotiations or contract situation. Rumours that Leeds are considering offering Daniel Farke a new deal have been circulating, and Plumley admits that there's nothing unusual about this, especially with the club now in long-term planning mode. Farke has steered Leeds through a very difficult period at the start of the season when the takeover was happening, and he did it with class and he did it with calmness, and he's also steered the club through the bad runs that they've had this season, again with an air of calmness, shielding the players from blame, shielding the players from pressure and taking it on his own shoulders, and has been very calm about every stumbling block Leeds have hit this season. Has just been a case of, yeah, it'll happen, we'll move on, we'll keep going, we'll move on. Plumley has said the following on the situation: it's not unusual in this day and age to see conversations around manager contracts start earlier, especially because we know clubs are planning long-term with managerial appointments. He went on to say that when a club knows that there are managerial movements at other clubs, they start to see where their manager could potentially end up being headhunted. And as a result, that can mean the club can kick into having conversations with managers much earlier about their future. Farke's done a great job at Leeds so far this season. Leeds miles ahead of where they were during the Bielsa promotion season. Yes, a better squad. Yes, very good. But we've definitely handled, I think, the second half of this season much better than the first, and there's been growth in that. I've talked an awful lot this season about the growth, and Farke has handled everything with an air of calmness and class, and that has to be said about the manager. At no point when Leeds have hit a bump have we seen the reactions like we've seen at Maresca at Chelsea or Russell Martin at Southampton. We've seen a very calm, assured figure leading the Leeds charge. Moving on to Archie Gray, and I think we were all going to expect this to happen at some point, especially after his performance against Chelsea, and the buzzards are very much circling around the Leeds United starlet, and there are now talks about Archie Gray's future, and the media have now started to jump on the bandwagon with this as well. Paul Robinson earlier this week spoke about the fact that he expects Leeds United to hold talks with Archie Gray at the end of the season around his future, and Archie is keen to hold talks with the club around his future. However, what that should be said is they've both already done that, because Archie's already just agreed a new deal that will come into effect when he turns 18, I think this week or next week when he turns 18. So that kind of conversation has already been had. But now Don Goodman has also weighed in on the situation, and Goodman insists that it's only a matter of time before Archie Gray heads to the Premier League with or without Leeds United. Goodman insists that there are other clubs interested in the Leeds player, and we know already that Liverpool and Newcastle have a firm interest in Archie Gray and have been keeping a keen eye on him. Now, according to reports, Manchester United are also said to be keeping tabs on Archie Gray as part of their rebuild moving forward. Goodman says that the Manchester United interest will be tough though, given the history and rivalry between the two clubs, and the fact that Archie is a member of the Gray family and will be very, very aware of the dislike and disdain between the two clubs and what is likely to happen should he go there. Goodman, however, went on to say that should it get to a stage where Archie Gray looks at moving away from Leeds United, he will have better options than Manchester United. Basically saying from a football standpoint, there will be bigger clubs around the world who'll be very interested in Archie Gray should he continue to progress at the rate that he's progressing at. Jude Bellingham and Real Madrid being a prime example of that kind of move. Borussia Dortmund being interested in young English players always as well. And it's very unlikely that Manchester United and Archie Gray would ever happen unless Leeds went into financial freefall and had to sell players like happened the last time with Alan Smith. I would be shocked if that ever happened. Archie Gray, very much a Leeds United fan, has been very public about that as well, and he'd have plenty of other options should he ever have to leave Leeds. We've said before, as long as Leeds match the ambition of this good young crop of players going forward, there won't be any problem with Leeds hanging on to these players. They want Premier League football. If Leeds can give it to them, happy days. So it'll all depend on what we do. All depend on what Leeds do. Talking about players staying on the club, and Sam Byram has been talking about his future. His 1 year contract at the club is fast approaching an end, and even though he's had some injuries this year, we can't take away from the fact that he has played an important part, especially in the early half of the season for Leeds United, and has played more football for Leeds United than at any other club in the last 10 years. They've had to mind him a little bit at times. They've had to keep an eye on his body, but he has had an impact for Leeds this season. Byram has now shared that he would love to sign an extension at the club and continue to move forward with Leeds United should the club be interested in doing that. Also, Byram's deal isn't a big one. It's a pretty modest contract that he's on due to the fact that he has excessive injury history. And it's also said that Byram is expected to return to the starting lineup tonight against Stoke, with the fact that Junior Firpo has a bit of a calf problem, and Daniel Farke is saying in his press conference that he won't risk making that injury any worse than it currently is. I've been a big fan of Sam this year. I know he's been out for a little bit with injuries. The club are kind of minding him as well. Firpo being back meant they didn't have to push him into games, and they could give him a little bit longer to recover from the little knocks that he gets at the age that he's at, and the amount of injury problems his body has had over the last decade or so. But he's been good this year for Leeds, Sam, when he has played. And if he does come back in tonight against Stoke, I'm sure he'll do a fine job. He hasn't really let us down when he's played. He's been very, very good when he has played for Leeds. So, even as an option off the bench, he's been fine. So, fingers crossed for Sam that he can continue to move forward with Leeds, and Leeds can offer him another deal as well. As I said, from a financial perspective, he's hardly a drain on the club. He's on a very, very modest wage to the club because of his history. Moving on to some good news in a way, and some bad news in a way. The Leeds United under-21s were in action yesterday, and they went down to a 2-0 defeat to Leicester City. However, we saw the continuing rebuild of the under-21s taking place, with more under-18s being given their debut by Scott Gardner on the back of giving debuts to other players earlier on this year. The 18s are expected to make the bulk of the under-21 squad moving forward into next season. Recent signings from Scotland, Josh McDonald made his debut in the game last night, and he was joined by impressive Sam Chambers and Ruben Lopata-White, who've been very good for the under-18s so far this season. We're seeing more and more of them get a chance to shine for the under-21s. Scott Gardner knows them well and will bring them into the fold. This gets them a little bit of experience before they move in and make up the bulk of that team next season. And then finally today, to cover off the potential future of Marc Roca at Leeds United. Again, we talked an awful lot about the last couple of weeks about Leeds' plans to move on the existing loan exiles, if you want to call them that, away from the club before the summer. And Marc Roca has been consistently linked with a move away from Leeds United on a permanent move. Marc Roca was, I should say, having a standout season for Real Betis on loan from Leeds United, and there has been consistent speculation that Betis would look to make that move permanent before the end of the season in order to tie the player down. However, Roca's form has dipped slightly in the past couple of weeks, and this is probably down to the fact that he has been diagnosed with pneumonia and has been out of several of their squads in recent weeks. Mucho Deportivo are reporting that pneumonia may be the cause for his recent dip in form and the effects that it has on the body. The article also goes on to say that the illness means that Real Betis' expensive, as it's labelled, move for Marc Roca may now be in doubt. They say that Leeds' promotion to the Premier League would make a deal for Marc Roca more expensive, and that the long-term issues that you can have after a bout of pneumonia may mean that an expensive transfer with the impact that's had on the player might now not be worth it to them. I think what we're seeing here is a lot of manoeuvring from different clubs. We've seen it with Roma, with Diego Llorente trying to negotiate a much smaller deal in order to sell him for a profit. I think that now these clubs maybe thought Leeds might go down and be down for a couple of years and get these players on loan for a few seasons back to back and not have to spend the money on them. I think the fact that Leeds are now hanging around the promotion spots, these clubs are starting to get a little bit edgy and start to think that maybe they won't get the deal they thought they'd get for these players and won't be able to tie them down to deals that they thought they'd get with Leeds being out of the Premier League. It's now looking more and more apparent that these teams are going to have to try and make these deals permanent if they want to keep these players. And the problem with that is Marc Roca did have a very good first half of the season at Betis. There will be other clubs looking at him. Pneumonia is a horrible thing to get, and it can have a long-term impact on your body. So if he can come back from that, it puts him in the shop window in Spain and in England even as well, or back in Germany, for a move which would put Betis in a position where they might have to bid for the player with other clubs, and they might not get what they want from that. So these kind of conversations, these kind of reports coming out, starting to look like clubs are getting a little bit edgy and may not get what they want, so they're starting to put pressure back on Leeds to say like, oh well, he's had pneumonia, like, his performances haven't been what they were, so we're willing to take him, but at a cut price deal. So I don't think Leeds will fall into that. The Llorente thing is a different situation, whatever's going on there with that move. The fact that Leeds kind of already know that Roma clearly planned to sell Diego Llorente, and he hasn't really played much in the last couple of weeks. They keep taking him out of the team, so there's some moving and shaking, as they say in the business, around this one, but it's pretty transparent for me. But I hope Mark Roca does get better from the pneumonia anyway, because it's a horrible thing to have. It really does affect you. So fingers crossed for him that he gets better from that, and for Leeds, puts in a position where the player can move on a permanent basis for a sizable fee that will benefit Leeds into the future. Folks, that's going to be it for me today. You can check out the match preview for the Stoke City game down below, and there's a little button down there you can press to subscribe to the channel if you want to do that as well. I will be back tomorrow morning for more Leeds news, and we'll have a match preview with stats for the game on Friday night. On Thursday night, keep an eye out for that as well. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. See you. Bye.